Ahoy, mateys, I be Scurvy Samuel the Scheming, and welcome back to the Phantom Perspectives, and today we be discussing episode 23 of Danny Phantom Pirate Radio. Okay, I'm not going to be doing that voice throughout the whole thing, I just wanted to do that because why not? But yeah, we are going to be looking, but yeah, today's episode actually does involve a fair bit of pirating. As in the beginning of the episode, Danny, Sam, and Tucker are on top of Fenton Works and are trying to look at the stars. However, while they're doing that, Danny's ghost sense goes off, and from beneath the ground comes a ghost pirate ship. It floats in the air, it attacks Fenton Works, and the captain of this ghostly band of scallywags is a kid. Specifically a kid by the name of Youngblood. He's he's a kid. He acts like a kid. He sounds like a kid. He is just all around a kid. He seems to be obsessed with the minutia of pirates to the point where he has to ask this skeletal parrot on his shoulder about certain pirate terminology. But pretty much he is kind of a force to be reckoned with, as he sicks his crew on Fenton Works and has them steal the ghost shield generator. Danny tries fighting them off, but Youngblood manages to fight him off before escaping with the generator. However, Danny's parents don't seem to mind that it's taken, as, well, when he goes to see them, them and Jazz are all listening to soothing, calm music on the radio, and it seems to be kind of having them in a trance, as whenever Danny tries to turn it off, they suddenly get defensive and don't want him to. And it even gets to the point where, and of course Danny's just concerned because he's wondering why Danny is concerned about this, and Danny's of course getting concerned about this, but when he goes to school, it turns out that his parents and Jazz are not the only ones that are being affected by this, as apparently Sam's and Tucker's parents have been listening to the same song too, and they've been listening to it almost non-stop, to the point where it's starting to get on their nerves, and even Lancer's starting to play it over the school PA. As such, in an attempt to try and get rid of the song, Danny tries auditioning for the role of a school DJ. However, it doesn't go well, as whenever he tries to get everyone pumped up, they don't respond until Dash pushes them out of the way and takes over. However, before Danny can do anything about it, Youngblood and his crew attack the school. Only this time they go into the gymnasium and steal some of their exercise equipment. Danny, of course, tries fighting him off, but somehow this kid is still able to fend Danny off. And of course, Danny is still annoyed, but he's starting to think that something's going on. Because for some reason this song is just playing non-stop, and any adult that seems to hear it seems to want to keep hearing it and is in a trance. On top of that, Pirate Beard, he's kind of wondering I keep calling him that. I don't know why I call him that. I've been playing some Drawn to Life recently, so that name's kind of stuck in my head. But so he's kind of wondering why Youngblood is so concerned about what's up with Youngblood. First he steals the ghost shield generator, and now he steals exercise equipment. And at the same time, this song's playing over the radio nonstop, and any adult that hears it seems to be in a trance. He's trying to question what's going on, but Sam is more concerned with trying to just get the song off the air. As such, she wants to use the Fenton Emergency Station, which is the big structure on top of Fenton Works, to try and broadcast out their own radio station. Danny, of course, doesn't think this will actually happen because his parents won't let him. However, when they go inside to actually ask his parents, they're gone, and all they find for them is a note saying that they're going to a cruise attached to a pamphlet for said cruise called the Embers Back Cruise Line, which, yeah, you probably can hear that and realize what's going on, but I'll just wait for the reveal. But of course, Sam thinks this is great because now they have free reign of the house, as they're going to still use the emergency station to broadcast out their radio station, which they call Party. But the next day, it turns out that it's revealed that it wasn't just Danny's parents that went to this cruise, as Sam's parents, Tucker's parents, and many other kids' parents have gone. Of course, Danny trying to be deductive, thinking, well, what's going on? Why well, how is this all connected? Why is everyone's parents suddenly going on this cruise? But Sam just thinks this is a perfect opportunity for them to host their radio station. Of course, Danny keeps saying, look, I can't be worried about this. I need to figure out what's going on, and it has something to do with this cruise, so I'm going to go there. As such, Danny is able to... As such, Danny, while they're talking... As such, Danny tries going onto the cruise liner, only he can't seem to get on. It turns out the entire cruise is covered in the ghost shield. And yeah, it turns out that the cruise liner is actually Youngblood's ship. It's somehow, which actually is somehow tied to the radio signals, and apparently the radio signals are causing anyone that looks at it to see the illusion of an actual cruise ship. As such, Youngblood, however, the cruise starts phasing out, the cruise facade starts to fade away as he goes back to a pirate ship, and they're starting to realize that something's phasing out their signal. As such, Danny again tries fighting Youngblood, which does not go well. As such, which doesn't go well, as he's hit by the cannonball and thrown into some crates, and Youngblood and the ship vanish. As such, Danny goes back to his house, only to find that a party's going on. And the reason for this is earlier in the episode, Danny wound up throwing Sam showed off the like a flyer for the radio for their new radio station, which he had the acting on a party. So Dash and Quan saw this and thought that there was going to be a party at Fenton's house, or Danny's house. So there actually is a party going on, and Danny's just like, okay, what the hell is going on? There's a party going on at my house and I don't even know about it. However, when Danny goes upstairs and wants to know and tries to get Sam. As such, Danny goes up to the Fenton. I just talked about it and I forgot what it was called. But he goes up to see Sam and Tucker and tries to get them to turn off the radio station, but they don't. But of course they don't want to. And of course, on top of that, however, while they're talking about they don't want to do this because they're not only getting our radio station, but there's still the party, which they didn't know about till Danny brought it up. So yeah, but it turns out that however, while they're talking about this, Sam brings up what she's been using as scratching fodder. One of the records that Lancer had that was playing that song, the soothing music over the radio. As such, she puts it on the turntable and starts scratching it. Only they start hearing some noise on it. They actually start hearing a voice. They hear it when they actually start listening to it, scratching it slowly. It turns out that the record is subliminally saying, "Leave your kids, come to the cruise." As such, they realize that this music is brainwashing all the adults that listen to it into going onto the cruise. And yeah, at that moment they realize that they have encountered someone who has controlled people with music, and at that moment Youngblood's ship comes in to try and knock out the radio station, and the one at the helm is Ember in a admittedly badass pirate facade in an admittedly badass pirate costume. Of course, it's kind of obvious. Kind of obvious. The flyer is called Ember's Back, which even Sam says it's not a clue, that's a billboard. But there is a more subtle hint in it, and that's actually in the music. While in the beginning it does not have, because at one point you actually can start hearing Ember's song being played on it. You can't hear it in the beginning when it's being played throughout the episode, but later on you can start hearing the Ember, you will remember, just slowed down and made more and played with more soothing instruments, which I think I find that to be a nice hint. Bottom line, what's going on is that Ember has teamed up with Youngblood because they both kind of share similar opinions on adults. They just don't like them. As such, they hatched this plan where they would use Ember's music to brainwash all the adults into coming onto the ship and providing it with power. In the meantime, with all the adults gone in the world, Ember could just play her music and take control of the world again. Because, rebellious adults. And one of the reasons they got the ghost portal was, well, just keeping Danny off the ship. As such, Danny can't get onto the ship and fight them, but they keep attacking the radio station. Or, not the radio station, the emergency... I'm just going to call it the emergency station now. That's the best I'm going to do. Bottom line, they're able to fend off the ship enough so that... Bottom line, they start attacking the emergency station, but it turns out when Sam plays with radio signals, she can actually... she's using to push the ship back so they can't stop them. As such, the kids' radio station is still going on the air and is jamming out their station. They start wondering, they realize that, how can we get the adults to... That's also, that's part of the reason why they grabbed it. That's also one of the reasons they grabbed the exercise equipment. They're having the adults run on the treadmill or riding on riding on one of those exercise bikes, and they're using all that excess energy to power up the ship, which Kind of makes me wonder how they powered it up before, but whatever. So, bottom line, they realize without the radio station to control adults, they're wondering how they can get them on the ship. And so the parrot just says, well, then we'll just do it the old-fashioned way, by kidnapping them. So that's exactly what they do. They send out their pirates and they just Shanghai a bunch of adults and onto the ship. Of course, the teenagers are noticed that because the fighting upstairs caused the ruckus that caused some stuff to fall in and downstairs. And so Danny realizes that while he can't go onto the ship as Danny Phantom, he'll have to rally everyone else. And while at first they don't want to listen to Danny does bring up a good point that. Danny brings up the point that while he may not be popular, he's the only one of these kids that's the kid of a ghost hunter and knows how to use their stuff. So they have to really. So as such, they do have to listen to him whether they like it or not. As such, Danny is able to rally all forces together and to an offensive and defensive plan. As Sam and Quan stay up in the emergency station to keep broadcasting the stations to keep Youngblood's ship away, while Danny and Dash try to organize an offensive strike against the ship. In the meantime, they have to find a way to get the ghost shield down, so Danny has Paulina make Tucker look like an old man so that they'll capture him and bring him onto the ship. And so, with all this in mind, they do capture Tucker because, though considering how frail that Paulina made him look, I don't think he'd be a good power source. And because he's a kid, he's completely resistant to the music. And sneaks away to turn off the ghost portal. In the meantime, Danny is able to detach the emergency station from Fenton Works because with an emergency hit hatch that's in the fridge because it'd be somewhere that Jack would always go, which is actually kind of funny. And so it detaches and turns into a blimp, allowing all the teenagers to ride it all the way to Youngblood's ship and jump in. Danny, of course, does try to go ghost the instant he gets into the shield, but for some reason the ghost shield isn't letting him, which I don't buy. It's stupid, and it's a plot hole. It's a plot hole because in earlier episodes, Danny actually did go ghost while he was inside the ghost shield. He even turned it on while he was a ghost, and he's been completely fine. The ghost shield is not supposed to shock any ghosts that are inside it. Otherwise, Youngblood's ship would be completely shocked. It's a ghost ship with ghost pirates and ghost captains that are keeping everything in order. So why is it that Danny can't go ghost here? Narrative convenience. That's what it is. It's narrative convenience. It's just there to have It's just there to keep Danny from going ghost a little bit longer until the climax. Which is dumb for many reasons. And it's actually, I think this is the only episode that's come up. Because, yeah, dumb. It doesn't make sense. It just does not make sense. But, bottom line, with that dumb writing out of the way, the kids do manage to fend off many of Youngblood's pirates. But unfortunately, Ember uses her music to trap all the remaining teenagers in a bubble, and they grab Danny in the bubble and try to get him to walk the plank. However, at that moment, the ghost shield manages to turn off. And so while they throw Danny overboard, Danny is able to go ghost and fly up and fight them off. As such, Ember, getting angry, attacks Danny and uses her hair to try and burn him, but she ends up burning the ship. But she ends up burning the ships. Well, not really. Sail, yeah, sail. Oh God, I almost forgot a simple word like sail. But she ends up burning the sail, and Ember realizes that wasn't a good idea, and it's probably just best to bail now. And so she disappears, and while Danny and Youngblood get into a faux sword fight, as Danny manages to steal Ember's guitar, and in the battle Youngblood it broke. And so they get into a faux sword fight, and in the meantime, Danny manages to beat Youngblood, and in the fight, all the music systems are tampered with, resulting in all the adults now waking up and no longer in a trance, so they run off. And because they were powering the ship starts to fall down, which again kind of seems weird. It's a ghost ship. It was floating before without adults, so why isn't it floating now? As so, to keep everyone safe, Danny has everyone huddle up against him, and he makes himself intangible and fly, allowing everyone to fly out to fly off the ship and get away. As the ship crashes into the ocean, and after Danny saves everyone, he hides and turns back to normal. And suddenly all the cred that he accumulated is gone, as Dash accuses him of abandoning them, even though they were all captured together, and they saw him grab Danny and have him. They saw Youngblood and Ember grab Danny, make him walk the plank. So I don't really see why they think he's abandoning them. And Jack sees all the teenagers wearing jumpsuits and realizes that they used the emergency station. And rather than Danny explaining rather than them realizing that they were under a trance by a ghost and that Danny rallied all the teenagers to try and rescue them, which should make them very proud of him, they get angry at him and ground him. Now, admittedly, he's part of his grounding. Part of the grounding is that he has to clean up after the party. But this still doesn't make a lot of sense, if you ask me. His parents should be proud. Like, they realized, oh my god, a ghost had us out of mind control, and you rallied all these teenagers? That's my boy! But no, the universe hates Danny, which seems to be a thing in this episode, but I'll get to that in a few minutes, but I'll get to that in a second. In the meantime, Danny wonders why Youngblood didn't abandon ship when he could. It turns out that just before the ship crashed, Tucker uses PDA to hack the ghost portal, but reverse the polarity. So now, instead of keeping ghosts out, it now keeps them in. So now Youngblood, his crew, and the parrot are now trapped inside the ship. So I kind of don't want to like this episode. I mean, don't get me wrong. There are things in there I like. For starters, Ember. Ember is still a really nice villain, and Ember is still a really nice villain. It's still kind of a devious plan, and I do like her new pirate design. It's really cool and kick-ass. And on top of that, the plan is actually a sound one. She creates a soothing music which has a subliminal message in it that causes anyone with an adult or has an adult mindset to want to suddenly go into a trance and do whatever they're told. And of course, her plan is to get all the adults away so that it's only kids left, so she can easily just take control. Which I think is nice, but I think one of the problems of this episode is, as I mentioned before, the universe just seems to hate Danny. And as I watched this episode, I started to realize something. Why is Danny still unpopular? Like, in the beginning of the series, I can kind of understand it. Danny back in the beginning of the series was like the son of the weird ghost hunters or so forth. Of the weird ghost hunters. And at that point, like, nobody knew ghosts were real. But then suddenly ghosts start attacking and they start becoming a common thing. Amity Park even starts instituting ordinances against ghosts. Even bringing Danny's parents in to try and provide extra security. They even are starting to do ghost drills in the school to prepare them for stuff like this. But I think Danny's street cred would probably go up a bit, especially considering that his parents are the ones that do it. But I don't know. It's probably me grasping at straws there, but it's not just that in this episode. Throughout the entire episode, Danny's the one that's that's realizing that something is up and that Youngblood, the music, and everything are somehow connected. But yet every time he tries bringing it up to everyone else, they just kind of blot him out. When he tries talking about this with Sam and Tucker, they just like, oh, we can just use this opportunity to make our own music station. Danny says that's why are our parents all disappearing? Hey, they're gone now. We can make our own station. I'm going to go check out the cruise. Well, we're going to go have a party. It's like Danny, it's like the universe just wants to give Danny the finger in this episode. And that just seems to be a constant thing. Danny, throughout this entire episode, he's the smart one. He's the one that's actually trying to keep everything focused. And yet everyone just seems to want to point at him and say, ha ha, you suck. And it's just kind of weird, and it's just kind of odd. And it especially kind of gets annoying at the climax where they just do a last minute backlash to try and get the status quo back that Danny's the least unpopular. Like, I don't understand. On top of that, I have a problem with the DJ's part. Why were none of the kids excited? Like, all of them hated the music just as much. Why wouldn't they get excited? Why was it just that it was cool when Dash did, but if Danny wanted to do it, well, they just did. Well, they weren't interested. Teenagers are fickle, but are they that fickle? I know teenagers can actually come together over certain things, but that was just dickish. And again, going back to what I rambled about a second ago, at the last, Danny rallied all the teenagers into a fighting force to get onto the ship. and they managed to actually fend off the pirates really well. It's not a... They actually... And on top of that, even while Dash said he still plans to wail on Danny, he actually thinks that he's a hero here. And yet, all it takes is for Danny to be snatched from their trap and made to walk the plank, and they say, "You abandon us." Screw you! He got captured. You saw him get captured. I don't understand that. It's like that throughout the whole episode. Danny is the one that's constantly trying to come up with all these good ideas, and it's the one that's keeping everything in track, and yet he's constantly given the shaft. It's just kind of like a screw you to him. It's like the universe hates Danny Fenton here, and I don't understand why. It's just kind of mean. It's just mean. On top, and then of course there's Youngblood, and I won't lie, I don't like this little turd. I don't. Like, I think as a kid, I don't remember much about him, but the thing is, he's a kid. An annoying little kid. He's got the voice of a kid, the demeanor of a kid, the patience of a kid, and he's just not intimidating. Every time that he's got an annoying voice, like his voice is the sound of a kid, and again, no offense to the actor who plays him, I'm criticizing the character, not the actor. Whoever the actor is, I hope they went on to have a fulfilling career in life, but I don't like this character. I just don't. He's annoying. He doesn't know what he's doing. He tries to be threatening, but he comes off as just overblown. Every time that he faces Danny, he seems to find a way to keep overpowering him. Even though Danny's 14 and this kid's like, I don't know, 8, 12, I don't know. His backstory is that he was a kid that died, but it shows. He sounds, acts, and looks like a kid. He is a kid, an annoying little kid that I really could not take seriously, despite all these dangerous things he was doing. And that's another thing. He should have been more skilled than he was. Like, with his pirate crew, I think maybe it would have been better if the crew did that. Well, I don't know. I think it's just because he's an annoying little kid. And really, at the end of the day, and on top of that, this wasn't his plan to begin with. He was the muscle. He was the guy with the ship, yeah. He was the guy with the crew. But it was Ember who was really pulling the strings. Ember and him just worked together because of the adults. But it was Ember who organized most of this, and she was the one that was kind of the backbone behind everything. He was just mostly muscle. He was just there, and again, he was an annoying little brat. So I didn't really care. So I didn't really care much for that. I didn't really care much for Youngblood. However, despite my continuing dislike and list of critiques, there are some things about this episode I like. For starters, again, Ember is a kick-ass villain, which I already talked about, so don't need to go into that. The plan is actually fairly sound. It's actually a fairly sound plan. Hypnotizing all the adults, get them out of the way, and just leave the snot-nosed teenagers around that Ember can easily control with her music again, without any adults to ground them and so forth. They could probably be just as easy targets. On top of that, what makes it, admittedly, while I think that Danny not being limited by the ghost shield and the ghost on Youngblood's ship is stupid, and really is so stupid that they stopped using it after this episode. It does lead to an actually pretty well done climax, as Danny is able to rally all the teenagers into an organized fighting force against the pirates, and they are actually well done in that regard. It's a well thought out plan, and admittedly it helps show more of Danny's creativity. It shows Danny's strengths, and actually kind of a bit how he's growing as a hero. Going back to the universe hating Danny thing, something I liked about this episode is that he wasn't stupid in it. He actually was thinking that with the appearance of Youngblood and his crew and this song that seems to get all these adults in here, he thought that it all couldn't just be a coincidence. And it actually was showing. And the episode, despite the fact that it constantly crapped on him, did show that he was kind of maturing in that regard. Even to the point where he was able to organize all the teenagers into an organized fighting force. I like that. It actually is nice. It's just that it's kind of weighed down with the fact that that the universe doesn't seem to just seems to want to shit on Danny, and on top of that, to the point where it gets ridiculous, and just the villain, or Youngblood in this case. Ember was fine. Youngblood was not. As such, I really don't know what to category. I would say this episode gets kind of a meh, but kind of a thumbs up. It's kind of somewhere between meh and okay for me. The positives I think the positives do make this episode worth watching. Because again, Ember, kick-ass villain. I love her in this episode too. It's a good the plan, fairly solid plan. Get the adults out of the way. Get the adults out of the way by hypnotizing them with music, and the climax is still pretty nice, despite the hiccup with Danny not being able to go ghost. It's just that the constantly having Danny be crapped on throughout most of the episode gets annoying, and it kind of makes you wonder what the hell. And Youngblood is an annoying little turd of a villain, and I didn't really care much for him. And if you like him, fine. Fine. And again, no shame on the actor here. He did fine, and I hold nothing against the actor. It's just the character I don't like. The actor did fine, but the villain, no, sorry. It's an annoying kid. I know that's what we're going for, but unfortunately, an annoying little kid is not someone I see as a great villain. So, yeah, on the whole, well, I think the episode has enough positive. Like I said, I want to dislike this episode, but I think there are enough positives to keep me from giving it a thumbs down, like I did with Control Freaks. This one, but I wouldn't give it a whole thumbs up either. I just kind of give it like here, so to speak. I think it does enough right to give it a pass. For passing the episode. I'm not saying pass up the episode. No, if you want to see it, fine. Like I said, Ember is nice. The plan is nice. I like the climax, and it does have some nice character moments for Danny. It's just that it's bogged down by having this dumb villain, which I think does not help, and just having the universe shit on Danny constantly. So, yeah, that's really all I have to say about this episode. So, yeah, on the whole, just a meh to okay episode, somewhere between those. It does enough right so that it's worth a watch, but it does enough wrong to get under my skin. So, yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say. Thank you for watching. I'm Samuel Johnson, and tune in next week where we begin taking a look at the first special that was aired for Danny Phantom. So, yeah, I'll see you then. Take care.